Are you frustrated with online dating? Confused by all the new apps and fancy dating sites? Do you find yourself choosing the wrong person again and again? Well, studies show that hiring a dating coach can maximize your online dating experience. So no worries, I've got you. And I've created a virtual course called Doing Dating Right. It's a 5-video series that you can complete at your own pace in your own space, right at home. How to write your online dating bio, pick that perfect picture, and so much more. Want more info? Go to my website at jenniferhurvitz.com. Again, it's jenniferhurvitz.com. Good morning. Good morning. This is Doing Relationships Right. I'm Jennifer Hurvitz, and I'm your host every Tuesday and every Friday. Tuesday is a guest, and Friday is Just Jen episode where I get to rant about, whatever. But I'm very excited today. If you recognize, if you're watching on YouTube and you recognize my guest, it's Christopher Melcher. He's in the house today with me, and I am just so excited to have you here, Chris. We actually recorded earlier in the season around August, and I was going to go, put you up live and do the whole thing. And then new stuff came out because let's tell everyone who you are, Christopher Melcher. You are amazingly working on, tell us everybody, freeing Britney.
Well, and that's just a passion project. So I'm a divorce lawyer.
Yes.
That's what I'm do for a living. But I've also do legal commentary for network news shows and print media, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. I just like it. It's something I always wanted to do, and through that work, I got exposed to the Britney Spears conservatorship story, and the more I learned about it, it's just a heartbreaking situation that she's under and how horribly she's been treated by the court, by her father and other people around. So I don't get paid to do this or anything, but I've been spending a ton of time learning about her case and then commenting in the media about it to let everybody else know like what exactly is happening here and how wrongly this is going.
And I have to tell you, you're excellent at it because I think a lot of us don't really, we're here like free Britney, and we're fighting for her and we love her. I mean, I grew up with Britney. I mean, she's like, I can't even tell you, I love her. But we don't know the real ins and outs of the law, right? We don't. And we're here sitting here, but you have your YouTube channel is fantastic. It breaks down everything and it really does dig deep into unpacks everything, like the real story of what's going on. It's just really, it's fantastic what you're doing. So can you start at the beginning and tell us like how you got into this? And, because I know we like to do relationships right around here. And clearly that was not a relationship done right between her and her father.
Yeah, it's so we go back in Britney's story to February 1, 2008. And she had a public breakdown, and that was really a very bad time for her because she was going through this custody battle with K-Fed. The paparazzi were terrorizing her, and I think anyone under those circumstances would have just really found it impossible to deal with. And so she was struggling, and she actually was under a mental health hold called a 5150 in LA County, which was temporarily placed on her by the government to, observe her and make sure that she was okay. And during that hold on February 1, 2008, her father secretly went into court and asked for a probate conservatorship to be placed upon her. And what that means is an order of the court taking away all of her liberty and vesting it in her dad. That is provided for in the law for certain people. Usually it's somebody who has like dementia or end of life. And we'll see that where maybe we have a parent who cannot safely take care of themselves, who cannot resist fraud or undue influence, can't deal with getting a roof over their head, any basics of life, they're just totally incapable of doing. And now they need help. And it's usually an adult child would come in and take that over. And it's necessary because adults have rights. I mean, and if we find a parent of ours in a situation like that, we have no right to their access their medical records. So we can't go and talk to their doctor, make medical decisions on their behalf. We can't go to their bank account and make sure that their bank isn't, dealing with bank records and make sure they're not being ripped off because our parent is an adult
Right.
and the bank won't talk to us and the doctors won't talk to us. So there are mechanisms in the law to, get protection for these individuals who can't protect themselves, but these are extreme
Right.
cases.
Can I ask you a
And
question, Chris? I
that's
don't
the
mean to interrupt you. I'm interrupting you, but I have a question to ask you. Who was the one who actually got the, is it 5150? Is that what you called it? That's it, right? Who did that in the first
Yeah.
place? Who filed for that, or who got that motion? Like,
Well,
did you?
so I would imagine, her dad probably had a
Okay,
hand in it,
I think so too.
but under the law, a police officer or paramedic,
Okay,
doctor who sees somebody who's gravely disabled, unable to take care of themselves, such that they present an immediate risk of harm to
okay,
themselves or others by reason of a mental health issue, can be taken into protective custody.
okay.
They're then taken to a mental health
Right,
facility, and the director or designation of that facility would evaluate the person. And if they found to be a danger to themselves or others, they can be held against their will for 72 hours for
right, right.
observation. And as soon as they become stable enough in that period, they're released. And then there's procedures to hold them for additional periods of time if necessary. And that is state imposed. So she was under that. So an individual like her dad can't impose that. It
Okay,
has to be imposed by the government,
right. But
and
during that,
so that's
he started his stuff.
while she
Right.
was locked up
Oh,
basically in this mental health facility, he secretly went to
that's
court
awful.
and had all of her rights taken away by a judge without any notice to her, and that was in violation of the probate code. The court, unfortunately, didn't follow the law and allowed this secret order to be placed on her. And there was no need for any order of protection over her person because she was already being protected
Yeah.
by the government in a 5150
Right.
hold. So the court right there should have said, hey, there's already a form of conservatorship over Britney Spears that it was imposed by the government. Why would we need a
Just
second one
unbelievable.
concurrent
Right.
imposed by her dad or requested by her dad and imposed by the court? We don't. So this was wrong from the beginning,
Wow.
and again, placed on her without notice. And then once she found out about it, she had a lawyer of her choosing, which is this guy named Adam Streisand from a big firm, go into that court, marched into that court and said, "I'm objecting to this and I want to be heard." And the probate judge said, "I'm not listening to you. Your client doesn't have capacity to select you," and had appointed
That's
somebody
right.
from what's called a volunteer panel, which are not necessarily the legal luminaries in our field, to oversee, to represent Britney Spears. And you figure Britney Spears is a very successful, very wealthy
Yes.
person, already has a lawyer picked from a big firm going there saying, "I represent her," and the judge is saying, "No, you cannot," and put somebody who has she had no relationship with, who wasn't really never advocated for her at all, um, except maybe one time, um, in place of her life for 13
I
years.
mean, it's
And
unbelievable.
so this thing was bad from the get-go, and then unfortunately what happens in that system is it's
Right.
self-perpetuating. Once you're in it, it's very hard to get out of it, and then everyone, including the public until recently, would say, "Oh yeah, we saw when she shaved her head. Oh yeah, we saw when she hit the paparazzi's car with the umbrella, and oh, poor Britney, she needs help." And then they just think like, "Oh, okay, well, this is what's normal,
Right.
and this
Right.
is this is all fine." No, it was never fine. It
Never.
should have never been in place. The law was never followed. And there have been many people in the Free Britney movement, her fans, have been saying for years that this is abusive, but nobody took them seriously, really, until June 23 of this year when when Britney Spears spoke in public in a proceeding. People listened, and she described what was happening to her in a 30-minute statement. And that was a big shift for public opinion, where it said, wow, we need to listen to this person. This doesn't sound like somebody who's unable to take care of themselves? Like, why are they under this protection? And why is her dad, who in charge of her? And when you look back at the court papers, he says, my qualifications is I'm a caterer and I'm an alcoholic. So we're putting an alcoholic caterer in
For
charge
13
of,
years. This is
for 13
13
years,
years.
in charge of this big estate where he has no qualifications to do that. And while he was doing this, he he had physically abused, one of her
Right,
children,
right.
to the point where there was a restraining order issued by another court against him. And I am just looking at all this, losing my mind as a lawyer, because where is the common sense? Why doesn't a judge wake up and saying, wait a minute now, there's just a restraining order issued against this person. Why are we putting this person in control of somebody else's life, of Britney's life? Because we are taking away somebody's liberty, investing it in another human, and that can lead to abuse,
Mhm.
because this is all done behind closed doors. So we can only do that when it's absolutely necessary, which it wasn't. And then the person that we put in charge has to be absolutely trustworthy, because otherwise the people that we put into control to protect can actually be an abuser.
So in your opinion, in your opinion, how did this happen? Like, how did this, if this happens to Britney Spears, you got to imagine this happening. I mean, she's the most, this powerful, how did this happen? I mean,
So it happened through a series of failures. I mean, one is that I think she was triggered and prompted
okay.
to be in that terrible state by the paparazzi, by K-Feds fighting with her over
Yeah.
custody, by probably her dad
Yeah.
and others. So she found herself in a very bad spot, which gave them an opportunity
To
to
use
say,
it.
look
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the first hook. Then he had hired a powerful law firm, and it shouldn't matter, but it does. If you go into court, by yourself unrepresented, you're not
Sure.
going to be taken that
Of
seriously
course
a
not.
lot of
Right. Right.
times. If you go in with a run-of-the-mill lawyer, maybe taken a little bit more seriously. If you go in with a powerful big
With
firm,
you.
you're going to be
Yeah.
taken more
Sure.
seriously.
Sure.
And so here he comes in, "Oh, I'm the dad. Look at, and I've got this big law firm behind me. Of course, they would never say anything wrong, and they know the law better than you, judge." So, and then it just sort of people go along with it and saying like, "Oh, okay."
But I have a
And
question.
so it's a series of failures, really, of the court not understanding what its legal obligations were, not using common sense, not overseeing this properly, not listening to Brittany and respecting her rights as a person.
Ay, what a mess.
And so it's this whole series of failures where now you see 13 years later, oh my God, how did this happen? Well, it's one mistake compounding another mistake.
Right. And isn't it true? Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't her the legal fees and everything was coming out of her money?
Well,
Was
that's it.
so let's jump.
And so there's a huge financial incentive that, Jamie Spears and his counsel had to perpetuate this, because Jamie was receiving massive amounts of compensation to serve in the role of conservator, including a fee based on her touring income, which is completely inappropriate. Because you figure, if we go back to my original example, say your parents are elderly, or your father's
Sure.
elderly and has dementia, and and he's just burning money, giving it away, can't do any, running out of the house,
Right.
in traffic. Okay, so all of these nightmare scenarios, and you need to take control, and now you're going to be a conservator to, out of love, to protect this person. Would you want compensation for that? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Maybe if it was such a big job
That I had to
where
quit
all of a
my job
sudden
or
you had to
something.
quit
Sure,
your
that's different.
job.
Yes, I
Okay,
see.
so let's take it to that level.
Okay.
This is such a big job, 24/7 care. You have to leave your job, and now you got to pay your bills. I'm sure if your dad was competent to understand, would say, "Yeah, I want my
Of
daughter, I want my
course.
son to be
I
paid.
see.
They were making $60,000 a year before. Take 60 grand a year." And I would have no problem with that.
Sure.
But if you're making 60 grand and then you go to a million, I do have a problem with that,
Yes.
because now you're just taking advantage, you're profiteering.
Right.
And so this is exactly what happened with Jamie Spears. There's no way as an alcoholic caterer that he was making, what millions of dollars.
Millions.
No
No
way.
way.
And so he's profited, his attorneys have profited, the other people has been involved. Her court-appointed attorney was getting $10,000 a week
Oh,
to represent her, and he did not do a good job at it, by the way. So everyone had an incentive. And then here's this court doing its annual, review of things without all the information that it needed, and not asking critical questions, not using common sense, not saying, why do we need so much protection? Maybe we can start scaling this back. Maybe let's hear from her directly. I want to know more information about this.
it's
It's a
awful.
complete failure, and like you say, if it can happen to Britney, it can happen to anyone,
Absolutely.
and I'm not here to say that all conservatorships are bad because they're not. There are some that's good, and I'm not here to say that the law is wrong. The
Right.
law is we have perfectly, beautifully written laws on our books. They just need to be followed, and we need the court not to trust everyone and just saying like, "Oh, you're saying this? Oh, you're from a big firm? Oh, sure,
Yeah, yeah,
fine."
yeah.
No, courts need to use common sense, need to have critical thinking skills and actually utilize them.
I mean, where was her mom? 13, this took 13 years to finally take shape where she could get some help with, like, this is Britney Spears we're talking about. 13 years. Chris, I can't even understand. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. And now, jump forward. Where are we? Where he's going to step down, but there are all these conditions, right? Which also is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, so the watershed moment was June 23 when she spoke in court,
Yes.
and then everyone heard because even myself, I'd been following the story, I've been commenting on it, but it was like, hey, she hadn't asked to end the conservatorship. And I figured she had a court appointed
Right.
attorney. Why wouldn't she just, if she wanted to end it, she would just go in and end
Sure.
it. And the
Sure.
fact
Sure.
that she didn't end it would mean something. And because I just didn't know, I didn't
Right.
understand the story. And when June 23 comes around, it's like, oh, now I'm hearing directly from her how she feels. She sounds really rational to
She
me.
did. I thought.
There's no way that she needs this level of protection. And then she finally, on July 14th, gets her own counsel, Matthew Rosengard
Yes.
from a big firm.
Yes.
Now, finally, she has somebody fighting for her and finally challenging Jamie Spears, her father, directly, calling him out, not going along with this program that had been in place. And then it was only at that point that we ever saw any real action and any real advocacy done on her behalf. So now, fast forward to today, it's a completely different picture. Her
Wow.
dad previously was standing in the way, was trying to perpetuate this thing, was resisting any calls for him to step down. Now he's saying, "Hey, I will step down. I will even support the end of this conservatorship. I just want my compensation to be paid. I want my attorneys to be paid." And probably, and we haven't seen this articulate yet, but probably a release of all claims. And Brittany's attorney is saying no to all.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any of those deals. You need to leave. This needs to end,
It's
and we're
enough.
not going to make deals. I understand, and I try to always look at both sides of
Okay.
the story.
Okay.
So if hey, if Jamie Spears was the conservator and the law says he's entitled to reasonable compensation, we can have a hearing about that.
Okay.
But for him to condition his daughter's freedom, which he now says in a court paper, I don't see any need for this conservatorship. He's conditioning her get out of jail to I get paid. That
So
in itself is a breach of fiduciary duty. That in itself shows where his priorities are. He's saying, yeah, sure, daughter, you don't need this protection. And you can be free from all this as long as I get paid, as long as my
right.
attorneys get paid. And he knows that that's being objected to. Even with the prior lawyer, the court appointed lawyer,
Yeah.
he did do a couple good things. And one of them was to object to the fees. And rightly so, because there's about $1.3 million in attorney's fees. And this goes back a while. So the bill's probably $2 million now, but there was a request for $1.3 million in attorney's fees, $540,000 of which were tacked onto the bill, disguised as legal fees, but were actually incurred by a crisis manager employed by the law firm for Jamie Spears to improve his image. And so wanting to use her money to use public
Right.
relations time to make Jamie Spears look bad. Well, hey, if Jamie wants to look better, he can use his own money to do that.
Yeah.
Why did Jamie Spears look bad and need rehab in the public image? Well, because of these allegations that
Yeah.
are being made against him by Free Britney and now his daughter directly. And what's more shocking about it is, and hopefully we'll see journalists come out against this forward, but when it's my information that he was using the crisis manager to plant negative stories in the press about his daughter, which would involve releasing not only false but confidential information about her mental health or care to the media, so the media would think that this is a protective and necessary
That does
conservatorship.
not surprise me at
And
all.
then not it's horrible to have done that.
Yep.
If again, that's an allegation, and
Sure.
that's going to have to be proven true or false, but that's an allegation. And if that's true, it's a horrible thing for a father to do against a daughter. It's a breach of fiduciary duty for a conservator to do against a conservatee. And then on top of that, to disguise that work as legal fees and present it to the court as fraud.
Anyone who's been through a divorce knows co-parenting is not all rainbows and sunshine, especially when alcohol abuse is involved. Pair these challenges with a pandemic and you have a perfect storm. Soberlink's alcohol monitoring system is the most convenient, reliable, and reasonable way for a parent to provide evidence that they are not drinking during parenting time. Soberlink's real-time alerts make it easy to negotiate with any party. Judges rest assured that the child is safe. Attorneys get court-admissible evidence of sobriety. And both parents have empowerment and peace of mind. Do divorce right and trust the experts in remote alcohol monitoring technology to keep your kids safe, happy, and well-adjusted. To download the guide, 5 non-negotiables for embracing a new normal that I developed with Soberlink, visit www.soberlink.com/DRR. So could she do something against him? Could she file it? Could she sue? I mean, what can she do? What can she do? I mean,
So
I have 2
she's
questions.
going
What can she do? And then also, why do you think she waited so long? Because why didn't she come forward sooner? I think that's what a lot of people are asking. Where was she? Like,
Yeah, that was what I was asking myself all these, this time. And the reason is that she had a very weak court-appointed
okay,
attorney
okay,
who never really advocated properly on her behalf. And she said in court on June 23, saying, like, I want to end this. And I really didn't realize that I had the right to end that. And and some people might say, oh, that's ridiculous. Well, think about this. It's that she's an entertainer. She's not a lawyer. She's
I
not a
would never know.
judge.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
was
like, how would she know all
right.
these
Yep,
laws
right.
and procedures other than if they were told to her by her
I
lawyer?
agree.
And also that, she had been medicated, given lithium, so that's going to have an effect.
Yeah,
And also been coerced by the conservatorship and her dad
it's awful.
and she said, like, if she didn't go along with this, that she would be threatened to say, well, I'm going to put you in a mental health facility. You're not going to see your kids. I'm going to take this away from you. And she was on an allowance of like $2,000 a week or something like that of spending money. Well, her own lawyer got $10,000 a week. Her dad got all this money. So what her dad's trying to say, and her dad's lawyer saying, well, no, but she had the right. She had the keys to the jail cell. She could have left at any time. She could have walked out of the mental health facility that they put her in. Well, that might be true on paper, but what did she understand?
Right, right.
And so obviously she didn't understand that, and she was being controlled and manipulated. And now, is speaking out so people can understand, like, oh my God, this is really has happened. And so she said she is going to go after
Good,
her dad
good,
and
good
others.
girl.
And so there definitely is going to be legal liability. There's a $48 million bond on the dad, which is a good thing that the court did.
Good.
So there's a source of recovery she can go after the bond. It's basically like an insurance policy on Jamie Spears as a conservator. I'm sure she's going to sue everybody that she can. I know there's been talk about criminal charges. I don't know that any criminal charges would be brought or could be proven. But the main thing is to hold people accountable. She can never get her 13 years back.
Never.
She may be able to get back some of the money that maybe was improperly spent.
Yeah.
But the thing is that this is making a change in other cases,
That's
and
good.
this is going to be part of her legacy. So it's not just her music and performance; it's the effect that hopefully it will have on our legal system, so that other people who are being abused by a parent don't get away with it.
Oh, I hope not. Yeah, and I mean, I think about her kids too. Like, it not only affected her 13 years, but what about her her kids are, it's just the whole thing. Like, I
Yeah.
just, it's awful. It makes me, I get so, it's very sad. It makes me very sad. So you were telling me before the show something interesting that's coming to fruition too, that you want to share about the tapes and everything?
Yeah. So what happened is I filed a request on behalf of USA Today for access to not only this proceeding that's coming up on September 29th to be able to listen in on what's going on in her case, which is a public proceeding, but also all proceedings, all public proceedings in the LA courthouse. So we back up a little bit. I mentioned on June 23 that Britney Spears spoke in court. And at that moment, the court had an audio access program that was available for the public. So any member of the public can go register at this link and get basically like a phone line that they could listen in on non-confidential court proceedings like Britney's. And so that's what they were listening to. And when she spoke, there is a rule against recording and broadcasting that the court has. So it says you can listen, but you can't record, you can't broadcast. Well, somebody recorded and
Right.
broadcast. And the court got upset about that and said, well, we're going to now cancel the entire program for all cases. And if you want to observe our court proceedings, you need to come in person. Now, we in the United States have a constitutional right to access our courts as part of the First Amendment right of free speech. And the reason why that's there is that we have a right to comment on public proceedings. We have a right to know what our government is doing and to criticize it. And the only way that we can exercise that right is by having access to government proceedings like a court hearing.
Mm.
So the court does have to allow the public and media to attend in person, and that's traditionally what's been going on. But now that we have the pandemic and restrictions on access to courts and health concerns about coming to court, and when we have intense media interest and public interest, a story like this, there's no way people across the world can go fit into this tiny little courtroom and watch in person. So the audio program was there as a way of the court fulfilling its constitutional duty to provide access to the public and the media, and they took it away. But they didn't take it away for everyone. Parties, attorneys, witnesses, others that it invites can attend by video and audio to the court proceedings, but they're just saying the public and the media, if you want to come, go find a seat and risk your health
Right.
during a pandemic. So I'm saying that's a violation of equal protection. So I have filed that in Britney Spears's case, not only to unlock access remotely for that hearing, but for all hearings in LA County. If the court denies it, I will take it to higher courts
Look at you. That's awesome.
because this is important. And
It
what
is.
we've seen in the work that I've done as a legal commentator, we have to access court records, and we want to know if there's a proceeding. I want to listen to it or see it myself because that gives me a lot more information than trying to get court records and just reading the paper later on. So we can accurately report on that to people who are interested. And the courts have made it difficult. They placed a lot of burdens and impediments on us to do that work. And it's not just the media, it's the public. So this is an unexpected outgrowth because I'm a divorce lawyer, unexpected outgrowth
I don't know.
of
This is
this.
kind of something new for you, I think. And
Yeah.
this is big and this is huge. I mean, this is really cool. It's very, and also your YouTube channel. So talk about that a little bit. So will we be able to get all this on your YouTube channel? Do you think if we can get you'll talk about it there too?
Well, So yeah, so I've started this channel, and if you go to YouTube and you just type in CCM ESQ or search for Christopher Melcher, you will find my channel, and it's new. And I've experimented around with YouTube for a while, and I was mostly doing it for education to other lawyers because that's how basically I've developed my reputation and learned a lot about family law is by doing continuing education to other family lawyers about family law. And so I'd made some videos about that, but it's kind of boring. And I was looking for a thing to do. And so when I started making videos about Britney's case and some other ones, I was really surprised and impressed that there are some people who really want to know the inner workings of the court. What does the law provide? What is the procedure? What's going on tactically right now? Because they're super interested in this. They're supporting her. They want the best for her, but they just want to understand it on a deeper level. And I just didn't know that there was. I just figured like nobody cares about the law other than lawyers and judges. But I'm glad to have tapped into that audience that people want to know this stuff. So I'm trying to deliver that information in a calm, balanced way. So I'm not telling them, oh, this is what's happening. I'm telling them this is the background so they can decide what's happening.
Right. And it's also, it's very, it's like, you're not condescending. You're not, it's very, it's people, you don't dumb it down, right? But it makes it, we understand you. That's
Right.
people like me who are more like Britney who don't understand. Like I could understand where you're coming from when you said that Britney just didn't know the law. That would be me. I'm in entertainment and this is what I do. And I'd need my attorney. I would trust my attorney to say, this is what the next thing we need to do. Like that's your job, right? So I can totally understand where you're coming from when she said, when she just didn't know.
Well, and this is a failure of professions. It's not only law, it's also medicine.
Yeah.
And we go to these professionals on big issues, and we kind of want to be deferential. And the professional's busy, and a lot of times they're paternalistic, and they're just saying like, "Hey, I know what I'm doing. Here's what you need to do."
Right.
And to me, that is so wrong-headed. And because I don't know what to do any better than you do or anybody else does. I don't have predictive powers.
Right.
And all I know is I've memorized some rules. I understand, how the process works in court.
Right.
Yeah, memorize a couple rules. Okay.
A couple.
But when it comes down to it, my common sense, my logic, my thinking is no better than anybody else's. And the difference is that I know the rules and the other person doesn't.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do is just say, hey, let me tell you what the rules are in a way that you can understand them. Yep. And then we can have a conversation, or then you can decide, you can make your own informed decision about what's happening. Is this right or wrong yourself? You just need to know the rule.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of people or professionals are missing it, is they're not explaining the technical part and then allowing their patient, their client, whoever they're talking to actually then use their own judgment to decide whether this is good or bad, right or wrong, whatever. So that's where I'm coming from.
I think it's great
when I'm making videos or doing commentary.
You're excellent. And you've been on a lot. You've been on CBS, ABC. I'm going to toot your own horn here, but while you're here, you've been everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah, good for you. And it didn't, it started off pretty slow, it was just like, hey, I'll get into a local newspaper, whatever I could get. Yeah. And then it's kind of taken off from there. And I really like it. And it's definitely a different skill set than being a lawyer. Yeah. And I'm almost like more like an interpreter. So it's like, it's just, how do I convey this information in a way that's understandable? It also has to be done quickly, right. Especially if it's a TV news thing.
But
we don't have
it's good. It is quick. It's quick. It's smart. It's fast, and it gets to the point. I love it. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So it's a completely different way of communicating. I like it. Like I said, I don't get paid to do any of that stuff. Yeah. I just like it more than handling these awful divorce cases. I'm sorry. I hope no of my clients aren't listening to this, because I just like,
I don't think your clients are listening to my podcast. Trust me, your clients are not listening. Trust me on that one. I'm not that big, but that's how I feel about podcasting. I don't get paid to do it, right? But I love it. it brings me joy, and it's it's like Marie Kondo says, if it brings you joy, yeah, I mean it's definitely really cool. I think you're awesome, and I'm just so glad you were able to come back and re-record, because I was like, there's so much new stuff we need to talk about. But I really am. If we could just answer one more question for me, I am really, as a mom, like, and I know Brittany's around this, probably the same age, but where was her mom during all this? Like, my two boys, I don't know, like, where what
Yeah, so
happened?
it's a complicated story, and so from what I understand, little bits and pieces of it, I mean, her mom is now coming out in support of Britney,
Okay, good.
but there's a lot of criticism about, like you're saying, where were you all this time? And so the last declaration by Lynn Spears is saying, well, Jamie's the evil guy, and I was under his spell or influence, or I was afraid to go against him, and basically saying, like, hey, I wanted to advocate for my daughter, but I really didn't know any better, and I was victimized too, is the kind of sense that I get that
Okay.
she was coming from. And also, though, that Jamie Spears kind of threw Lynn under the bus in a filing he did last month, where he said, hey, Lynn's been feeding at the trough too. Lynn lives in this, what he called a mansion in Louisiana,
Mm,
that Brittany's money has been used to support it of a tune about 100,000 a year, and or $10,000 a month or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
And that included maid service and all this stuff. So
yeah.
he's trying to make her look bad by saying, like, hey, she benefited from this too. It was a completely idiotic statement for Jamie to make, because he's the guy who was writing the checks.
Yes, exactly. He
So
had to
why
write
would he
it. Why would he
use
say that?
yeah,
It's
why would he use
oh,
Britney's money to support somebody other than Britney? And then in that same sentence, again, just his attorneys aren't really. I'm not impressed,
no.
because in that same paragraph, he's saying, and Britney doesn't even get along with her mom. Well, if that's true, that Britney doesn't get along with her mom, why would Britney want her money to be used to
Right.
pay the living expenses, including a maid,
Right.
for somebody she doesn't get along with?
Right.
So they can't even get their story
Yeah, that's
straight.
the problem.
This seems like, I mean, not the most functional family in the world.
Yeah.
And, hey, if a conservatorship were needed over somebody, it's usually a family member stepping in, because there's not millions of dollars to go hire professionals.
Right.
But here, there's millions of dollars to hire professionals.
Right.
Why court do you appoint an alcoholic caterer to take care of somebody when Brittany has plenty of money, could hire
Right.
the most trustworthy, qualified person in the world, but instead you appointed her dad, who she didn't have a good relationship with,
Do you
who
think
was
we'll ever hear
unqualified.
something weird? Do you think we'll ever know something? Do you think there was something not right? Like, I mean, really, like there was, or do you just think it just happened? Like,
Well, so
I
if you look
wonder.
on Twitter, they will say that the court's corrupt.
Okay.
Most people will say the court's corrupt. I don't buy that, because to me, the definition of corruption is performing a public act for money, meaning a payoff. There's no evidence that that happened. Now, maybe people have different definitions of corruption, and that's what they
Yeah.
mean when
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that, and that's up for them to use whatever words and
Sure.
language and opinions that they want. I don't use it, because my definition of corruption is performing a judicial act for cash. That there's no evidence that that happened, and I don't believe that that would happen. What I believe it is incompetence.
Okay. And
And so, and it's not a very popular thing for me to say about judges who, I may appear before in Los Angeles Superior Court, but I do say it because a judge needs to know the law and needs to follow the law. And if we don't have those two things in a judge, we are in serious, serious trouble. And so there were failures. It wasn't, to me, because somebody was paid off. It
okay.
was because somebody wasn't doing their
I
job.
agree. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just so, this whole thing, I just can't even. So just jump ahead. September 29th. This is going to air before that, so we won't know. But do you think that it's going to all go okay? How do you think? What do you think?
Well,
In a
there's
perfect
a
world.
lot for the court to do on September 29th,
Okay.
and Jamie's definitely mixed it up now with his statement that, he's okay ending the whole conservatorship. And because previously we were thinking that the hearing was only going to be about whether Jamie would be removed and somebody temporarily would be put in his place,
Okay.
and then the conservatorship would be ended as kind of a step 2 to this process. Now he's saying like, hey, let's just go and end the whole thing. So it's confusing. There's a lot to do. The court only has allocated a few hours to this hearing on September 29th because it's set it at 1:30. So there's really a limitation on how much time the court can spend on it and what it can accomplish. So I'm not expecting, that this is going to be over with by any means on September 29th. But we need to be patient. It's going on for 13 years, so it's not going to just end immediately.
I just wish her the
But
best.
she definitely still needs the support of the public, and I give credit to the Free Britney movement. If it wasn't for those fans that were protecting her, speaking out on her behalf, we wouldn't be talking about the story right now.
The chills.
So she'll continue to receive that intense support. Eventually, this will be lifted. I am going to be doing a live stream on that date. So if you're going to YouTube, there's a channel called Popcorn to Planet.
Can we get
Popcorn to Planet?
Make sure I get that. Have your people send it to me so I can put it in the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone
So
can find
it's Andy's got a great channel called Popcorn Planet, and he's going to be live streaming
that's so
that.
cool.
I'm going to be remote there on the courthouse steps, giving commentary before, during, and after, and interviewing Free Britney fans. And so it'll be a good show to watch. And then I'll be doing media interviews,
What day of the week is
in
that,
between.
September 29th? That's the, because you're going to be that week. So this will all be all together, the podcast and everything together. So it'll be great.
September 29th,
Okay.
1:30 p.m.
Awesome.
Pacific is when the hearing starts, but we're going to start streaming probably around noon Pacific on September 29th.
Great. Well, you know what? I hope everything's okay. I love Britney. And I was part of that Free Britney movement. I wanted to get a t-shirt for today. I love her. I just hope she's okay. And I hope it goes smoothly for her and she gets out of this because she deserves it. And her kids deserve their mom and to be healthy and all those good things and doing relationships right, people over there. So thank you for being here, Chris. I appreciate you.
Well, thanks, Jennifer.
And just do good things and keep doing big things and, all that good stuff. I appreciate all of this. It was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And listeners, or listener, whoever's listening, you can find Chris. Where do we find you the easiest? Oh, wait, your YouTube channel. It's hashtag what? The Law?
Yeah, that's what the title is. It's easier if you just go into the YouTube search bar and type in CCMESQ or Christopher Melcher, MELCHER, or you can just Google Christopher Melcher and you'll come up with all my stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, guys. And everything will be in the show notes. And you know where to find me. It's JenniferHurvitz.com. It's easy as that. And I'm everywhere. So, and everybody have a great day and get out there and support Britney Spears and Free Britney movement and all that good stuff. So peace, love, and so much truth, y'all. Have a great day.